Filmmaker Gary Tunnicliffe joins us once again live on Midnight's Edge in the Morning. No one cares about the High Republic. More info on the Kevin Feige Star Wars movie and more this morning on Midnight's Edge in the Morning. How's everybody doing out there? I'm Tom Connors. With me is the boss man, Andre. How you doing?
Greetings, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. And also with us, back again, it's been a little while, but we're always happy to see him, Mr. Gary Tunnicliffe.
Happy New Year, everybody. Great to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
That's right. It has been since last year, since we've had, well, of course, we're only a week into the new year, but still. But welcome.
And to anyone that thought that things were going to get better once we passed 2020, off to a great start, huh?
We were.
Yeah, that's all we're going to say.
And then it all went downhill from there. I started the new year by watching Cobra Kai, and then everything's been shit ever since.
Now, to be fair, you also finished Star Trek Discovery.
Exactly my point. Everything's been shit ever since. But the last time we got to talk to Gary, he made an announcement. Isn't that right?
Oh yeah, about chlorophobia. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So we're moving ahead. We're actually doing another polish on the script right now, and then I think I've kind of said that I don't really want to shoot in a non-vaccinated world. I think it would be we're not a big budget production. And I just don't see the point. I mean, of trying to make a film and potentially they're being shut down or having people get sick. So and I don't want to be screaming at the crew, calling them all kinds of names and telling them that I don't want to see them doing stuff like that. Although I completely understand why Tom did that, and he had every right to do that. But I don't want to be doing that. I'd rather everyone just had a shot in the arm, and then we could all make the film like we normally make films, and then that'll be fantastic.
Yeah, I don't want to chide the crew for being SPs. Let's try to avoid that. So but anyway, Gary, it's fantastic to have you back here, and happy New Year to you and to everyone that's joining us. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone's here. It's so good to see so many from our community, from so many places. Please hit like, help share the link, and we shall get started on the topics of today. First, we have a couple of super chats from before we went live that I want to go through first. Sontar says, the Republic shall be reorganized into the first galactic empire for a safe and secure society. That can be interpreted in many ways right there. But right now we're gonna try to take your mood away from all of those things and forget about the important things and just focus on our little escapism for the time being, or at least we're going to give it a good try. We'll see if we
try
succeed.
Is the operative word here.
Exactly. And Alex Acerra says for $4.99, thanks so much. To my understanding, there are horror-themed Star Wars books. Given Feige and Co.'s increasing influence, any chance of Star Wars making strides into new genres? I wouldn't bet on that as long as Disney Plus is in the picture, but you never know.
Yeah, it seems like even Marvel don't want to step into that realm. I mean, as we clearly saw with the Scott Derrickson situation. So I'd be surprised if they were to take Star Wars into a horror genre. I love that. I think it would be great. I mean, I think influence, but I don't think they'd ever take it towards a horror theme, which is a shame because it would be wonderful for someone to be brave enough to say, hey, why not? Let's make an adult Star Wars film, why not?
Yeah. And before we move on to any more super chats, I want to just get us started into the topic of today. But before we get into the battle for the soul of Star Wars, I want to have a little bit of discussion since we have special makeup effects artist extraordinaire Gary J. Tunnicliffe here. What did you think of the de-aging of Mark Hamill towards the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian, and how could it have been made better?
Well, I mean, I think, basically you're looking at three. There are three options. Well, four options, I suppose. One would be to do a makeup, which really wouldn't work. You could possibly find an actor who you could, do a makeup on, but it would be kind of redundant because it's a young aging makeup, so it wouldn't really work. You could have an actor play it, which when I watched the footage and saw some of the reaction footage, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but a lot of people genuinely thought it was Sebastian Stan playing the character anyway. I saw a lot of video reaction where people were like, "It's Sebastian Stan, it's Sebastian Stan," and I'd never realized how much Sebastian Stan looked like a young Mark Hamill until it was kind of raised. So I think that would have worked. Obviously, they did a CGI de-aging, and I think probably, I am a big fan of deep faking when it's done properly. I would have liked to have seen it probably defaked. I did see a deep fake that was done, but I think it was done very quickly. And no matter what, both of the versions seem to have problems with lip synchronization, and I'm not sure why that was. My initial thought was that, because I didn't know how they'd actually shot it, was I wondered if they'd actually shot it with Mark Hamill, and because he has a beard and stuff, if they'd had problems matching the lip movement. But from my understanding, it wasn't Mark Hamill who actually did the performance. It was an actor who was kind of similar.
My understanding is that it was another actor who was the one who ran around in the hood, and that used like the lightsaber and everything. But when he was standing there and he took his hood off, that apparently was Mark Hamill de-aged. Using the same proprietary de-aging technology that Marvel has used before, starting in Tron Legacy and continuing in the Ant-Man movies, where they de-aged Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton.
Right, though. There was a stand-in, though, and they put Hamill's face over the stand-in, because, like, Script said he knew the one guy that was playing the one part, and he's like, the other guy's a stunt guy. But yeah, so there's technically three people all playing Luke at once.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes sense that if the I did see a deep fake version of the dialogue.
Yeah,
I know that the lip syncing wasn't correct, and if that was done over Mark Hamill delivering it, if that deep fake was done over that, then that would make sense why the dialogue, why the lip sync wasn't very good.
That's what I'm thinking too, Gary. That was my first thought.
Yeah, so it would have had a problem there. It's such a weird thing. We're still very much in kind of, it feels like we haven't kind of cracked it yet, and at times it really works well. I think some of the deep fakes I've seen of for instance, the Harrison Ford, deep faking into Solo, the movie Solo, I thought were brilliant. I thought were really, really fantastic. Maybe, and again, deep faking relies on having a lot of footage of the actor of that age, at that time, for the computer to be able to use it as to look at all angles and all kind of and get every kind of expression. So you're probably looking at Hamill from that time. There isn't that much apart from the movie, and it probably isn't of the greatest resolution. So that might have also accounted for it. But I think obviously everyone was just happy to see the actor, but the character. But there was definitely something where, again, just like so many times when you see something and something is not quite right there. What's wrong? Looked good on the first reveal, but you've got to wonder how much time did they have and how much money did they spend on it. I think it could have been done better.
Yeah, and I think I'm trying to remember if it was you we were discussing this with or somebody else, but about how Disney owns ILM now, so they probably used whatever they had for the software that they had done with the Marvel movies, which they said they did, and they avoided using deepfake. But that's why we think it was probably just because they don't own that technology. That's why, because whoever it was that did that deepfake online did it in a matter of a couple of days, and it looks infinitely better, in my opinion.
Well, deepfake is an open source technology.
Yeah.
You don't need to own it anyway. Anyone can do deepfaking. You can go online.
Well, I don't know why then Disney just didn't go that route, because you have Return of the Jedi, which has been scanned in 4K. That's obviously what the guy used who did it. And again, the name escapes me, but Andre knows who he is.
Shamook.
Yeah. And I figured out watching that why it is I prefer the deepfake, and that's because it's an actual face being put on. You can tell the difference between the eyes. You can tell the difference. There's life there, as opposed to the de-aging stuff where it just looks like a dead doll.
And what's really strange, Tom, is that the deepfaking is far cheaper and far easier to do than the CGI version.
Yeah, I know. And that's, yeah, because it took the name again. I can't even pronounce it. Shamook.
Yeah.
Okay. It took Shamook like 2 days to do it? Not even, because it was already out by that Sunday or Monday after the show had aired. So
it's literally a case of you're just running a software onto the footage. I isolate the face, and then you just run the software on it, and the computer just crunches, and if it'll ask for more data. The more data you can give the computer, the more images of the person's face in every kind of nuance and expression you can give it, the better the deepfake will be. And the higher render you give it. But I mean, it's a case of just running a software. It's not like somebody sitting over a computer and CGIing and manipulating and animating the lips and everything else. It's kind of scary. It's very, very scary. It's incredible technology, and we are seeing, like I say, there are some versions of this or some examples of this online that I think are uncanny. Absolutely uncanny, and it would have been nice to see an uncanny one for this. It would have been, and again, I think it comes down to really the choice of a studio or a director to say, you know what, I want to go ahead and let's go ahead and do this, like a Cameron or a Jackson or somebody like that, to say, you know what, we're going to do the first complete character that's using this deepfake technology rather than a CGI character. And I've spoken to some people. I spoke to someone over at Weta about it. And when I mentioned it to them about doing actors, they were like, oh, yeah, that's a really good idea. We haven't even thought about that. They said we've all kind of got used to doing the one technology, which is using the CG version. And we haven't kind of thought, why not use that? It's there and it's simple and it's pretty easy to use it. I guess it's a bit like sometimes, maybe I'm wrong, but it's sometimes it's like when you're on a film set, and I'll give you an example. I did a film called When the Bow Breaks, and there's a scene where we had a girl sitting in a bathtub, and she's supposed to be sitting in a bath of foam, like a bubble bath. And, it came to shoot the scene, and I was doing a makeup on the girl, and the special effects guys were doing the foamy bathtub stuff. And they bought this big machine a big chrome pumpy machine, and turned it on. And it was generating bubbles, and they were kind of feeding the bubbles to this hose. And there was like 4 technicians there, and it broke down halfway through. It stopped making the bubbles. And the director was like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Like, we're in big trouble. And I looked at the special effects guy and I said, do you have the bubble bath stuff that you have in the machine? And he went, oh, yeah, we've got gallons of it. And I said, just put it in the bathtub. And he put it in the bathtub. And I put my hands in the water and went like that. And the bubbles started to grow. And the director went, what's going on? Who did that? And they were like, it's that Gary's doing that. And I said, well, someone give me a hand. And we wiggled our hands around really fast, and we made tons of bubbles in 5 minutes. And it was like, and the special effects guys had to kind of sheepishly take off their machine, which I'm sure they charged an absolute fortune for the rental and for the technicians, when really all you needed was a couple of people to shove their hands in the water and froth their hands around and have some bubble bath. And that's kind of the way it is sometimes. It's like you can't charge a lot of, when you can't charge a lot of money for something very simple, like, no one wants to use a rubber band to fire a paintball. They'd rather bring a big contraption in, some kind of Heath Robinson machine, you know what I mean? And they can bill it out at a large amount of money. And I'm sure it was the same for some CGI shots, it's like, well, that's really cheap, guys. It's kind of like, we don't want to use that. It's cheap, and we need to be able to bill out 12 CGI guys at $400 an hour and using high definition machines and crunching all that. When I think it's like I said, that's why we're seeing these great examples from people like Shamook, who are doing this in their homes and on their own machines at home. You know what I mean? They're not using silicon graphics machines or any kind of crazy, industrial render farms. They're just doing it on their home computers.
Yeah, the only real problem I've heard with it thus far is mainly just doing 4K video, I guess, is a pain in the ass. And you have to be able to get a 4K source and all that kind of stuff. And but outside of that, like, a year or two from now, this technology should be extremely advanced. And to me, it works 10 times better. And I know we had this discussion before with you about how it really probably could be the future of makeups. Like you said, you do it one time, you scan it in, and then you don't have to worry about putting your actor through that crap again. It's the process is done. You're not spending 4 hours in a makeup chair to get the makeup on and 2 hours or 3 hours to get it off, etc., and all that kind of stuff. So it does make sense. And to me, somebody who, like, you and I have even talked about this, how I'm not a fan of CGI in almost any way, shape, or form. I mean, I'm fine with them taking things out, using it to composite different things together, but I'm not a fan of CGI effects overall. I mean, I can overlook certain things for stunts and stuff like that, but I'm like you, where you just told the bubble story. It's like, if you can do it in camera on the day and save yourself all kinds of work, trouble, and money, I just don't see the point in it. And I do feel like you're right. There's a lot of directors out there, where I've seen it even in, behind the scenes footage where they're doing a scene and it's like, oh, we'll do that in post. And like, are you kidding me? Just do it now with some tape and popsicle sticks. It's like, I've only worked on a few, small independent productions, but I know enough to where it's like, you got to make do with what you got to make with what you got. Sometimes it's shoelaces and glue, but that's all you got,
No, I mean, on Sleepy Hollow, Tim Burton would say, we'll ILM it, and even the ILM rep on set, Jim Mitchell would, after a while, was like, Tim, you can't just keep saying ILM it, like, there's a cost inference to that. Sometimes it's good to actually do it practically, and it will save a huge amount of money. We had several large discussions where the phrase ILM it was like, no, you can't just ILM it. But I mean, I know that you're not a fan of CGI, but I do go back to the classic thing I've said many, many times, is that I think, again, when CGI isn't done very well, it's bad. Yeah. But if you look at movies today and look at what we're watching and realize how much CGI there is in so many films now, and I'm not talking about the obvious, dinosaur running across the screen, or I'm talking about vehicles and car chases and motorcycle chases. And I mean, you watch a movie like John Wick, Parabellum, and you realize that amazing motorcycle chase, is so much of that is competent CGI work, and it's brilliant and it looks amazing, and you couldn't do that 10 years ago. You wouldn't be able to achieve a scene like that. So many things, and cars and vehicles look incredible these days. They really
those things I have no issue with. It's generally living things.
Yeah, I mean, again, there are. I mean, look, I mean, I disagree with you to a certain degree, because I think you watch a movie like Avengers, and to me, Thanos is a real, living, breathing character, and I think if you watch Planet of the Apes, I mean, I think those apes look absolutely 100%.
Oh, I agree with you on the latter, and even with the former. But the problem you have is you have a great character like Thanos in the same movie where you've got extremely bad effects and some other scenes that just, you got to have that quality control there. That's the other problem.
Yeah, I think I mean, Stephen Norrington used to say, it's really a question of, do you have enough money to flick all of the buttons on the desk? Like, really, CGI comes down to how many layers of effect, how dense the layering is. The more buttons you can add, and the more layers of luminosity and depth and everything else, and shimmer and it's really, like you say, sometimes you come down, you can only afford this many. If you can afford all of them and flick all the buttons, then you get something like for instance, when ILM did Davy Jones, they knew they were going to spend a lot of money, and they went out of their way to create a character that would be incredible. And Davy Jones in that Pirates of the Caribbean movie is unbelievable. It's an incredible piece of work and looks beautiful. And then in the background, you've got shitty, hammerhead man head, and it's pretty awful. So I think sometimes they just run out of money, and they just they can't do it on everything. And that's unfortunately is when you've got one thing in the frame that looks very, very good, and one thing that's not so good. It stands out like a sore thumb. But I mean, like I say, going back to to Avengers, even you look at Thanos, it's a great character. I think Rocket, you believe Rocket. You don't kind of look at. I mean, I lose myself in those movies. I'm not thinking, oh, that. I mean, what would it be 15 years ago? It'd be a puppet, it'd be an animatronic thing wiggling around, and you'd only have it shot from the waist up. It wouldn't be walking around and talking, So,
right.
And again, it's getting better and better all the time. I mean, we can go back now and look at movies 10 years ago where the CGI is really, really ropey, and it gets better and better all the time. So, but I think embracing technologies like deepfake would definitely be a benefit to them. And like I say, I think regarding the makeup question, I think it's just a case of a director saying, you know what? I've seen an example of this. I'd like to see a test of an actor in a makeup, being put on every day by deepfake, and if it's good, then we'll go with it.
Yeah. No, and I'm not adverse to it when it's being used and utilized well. And I know, most of the time they don't get nearly as much time as they would like to. And if they had the time, we could get, great effects all the time, like the Planet of the Apes movies. But then we get movies like one that just recently come out, like Wonder Woman, and they had several months to fix scenes that everybody was pointing out that were glaringly bad in the trailer, yet they didn't fix them.
Well, I mean, yeah, we haven't spoken about that, Tom. We were both right. See, we didn't have I haven't spoken to you since Wonder Woman came out, and hate to be the person that was like, I told you so, but I told you so. I think we could see it in the trailer. It looked bloody awful.
Oh, yeah, we all knew.
Well, Grace Randolph saying when she saw the trailer going, oh, and Cheetah's obviously going to look better. That's obviously just temporary effects. It's like, no, that isn't the way it works in visual effects. But I've seen visual effects companies in action, guys, and it's scary. I was on a film where they paid $1 million to an effects company to do 17 shots, and I remember being I was in the boardroom having this meeting because I was asked to come in because I conceptualized some of these shots, and the visual effects company turned around and said, we've done 12 shots. We're supposed to do, we were like, yeah, you've done 12. And they look good. Where's the other 7? And they went, well, we've run out of money. And it was like, well, but you were contracted to do 17 shots, and you've only done 9 or 10, and you've run out of money. So what are you saying? And I said, well, we need more money. We need like another $1 million to do the other 7 shots. And we were like, but you agreed to do it for that. Yeah, but we've run out of money. But the 9 shots look really good, right? And they were like, yeah, but you agreed to do 17, and we need 17 to finish the film. And they were like, sorry, we have no more money. So if you want the other shots, you'll have to pay more money. And we were like, we paid you $1 million. And they were like,
you could go and try and sue them, but what are you going to get out of them if they're broke, right?
We've got no more money left, like it was like, but. And their constant reply was, but the shots look good, though. You like the shots they've done, right? And it was like, yeah, but where's the other 6, And they're like, yeah, we ran out of money. But they look good, though, don't they? They look really good. Yeah, but where's the other... It's like having a
That's
wedding.
where, as a director, you got to go, look, I would have rather had all the shots that look decent instead of half the shots that look good, okay? But
what happens sometimes, it's like, not so much these days, but like I remember having a shot, on Blade. I remember on Blade, Norrington said that one of the visual effects companies, they did a shot. It was either Blade's glasses flying through the air or a sword flying through the air. And when they got the footage, Norrington said the sword's coming the wrong way. And the CGI company went, yeah, well, we did it the other way and it didn't look as good, so we thought it looked better going this way. And he was like, yeah, but he throws it that way. I can't have it going the wrong way. And they were like, yeah, but it looks really good, doesn't it? What are you talking about? And sometimes there's a disconnect. I think animators are just, they're in charge of their one little piece. And again, this may be also why you sometimes get a lack of a mismatch of quality sometimes, because certain people are working on certain shots and certain people are good ones. Again, like a classic example there would be, when you had Steve Spaz Williams working on Jurassic Park doing the T-Rex, in the rain sequence. And if you look at the T-Rex in the rain, that's great, but the Gallimimuses are a bit floaty and a bit see-through, you know what I mean? So you're getting different people working on different shots. If you had that one person doing the whole movie, it probably would have been great. But then you had the same guy who did that amazing T-Rex in the rain did Jabba the Hutt in the in A New Hope, in the scene with Harrison Ford, with the classic, Han Solo stepping on the tail of Jabba the Hutt. So I mean, you don't know what was he on that day. I don't know. So, oh look, Rum's here. Look
Yeah,
Gary's favorite audience member.
Yeah, Gary had been waiting for that. So.
I love the way Andre says his name. So it always makes me happy.
Yeah. So we got the super sticker from and we got a number of other super chats too. And we'll get to them momentarily before we get back into the Battle of Solo Star Wars. But we really have to, of course, listen to Gary's stories because they're amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the reality of working in the movie industry.
But no, like
it's a weird thing, and so CGI companies are like vendors sometimes. They just I did a video years ago where I took the piss out of ILM because I said that ILM stands for I love money.
Well, I'll be honest with you. There's times they do great work, and then there's other times where I'm just like, yeah, I'm not so sure what.
Yeah, but see, you know why that is, right? Again, this comes down to sometimes at ILM you get the A team and you get the B team and you get the C team.
Oh yeah.
If all their people are working on certain things, it's a weird thing. And I know some people who work at ILM who they have great experiences there, but sometimes they're literally like, they do their little tasks and it's like, yeah, fine, it's final, move on to your next thing, and they're like, really? That's okay? And they're like, yeah, approved, moving on. So I think anyone who's watched those videos of that classic stuff of George on Phantom Menace, where he's that horrible realization sitting in the screening room where he's like, I think we did a bit too much here, It's like,
well, then you can't fix it now. But I think Mage Grey Wolf was watching Mead last night. Were you watching when I was talking about? Because I said if you guys don't want me to make movies, I'm like I'd be making movies like Nunchucking Dinosaurs, where you literally dinosaurs with nunchucks running around with fucking ninjas on their backs and shit, and everybody. I had at least a dozen people in the audience that were totally ready to start crowdfunding my idea. So I might be with nunchucking dinosaurs. I don't know.
I'd pay to see that. We had the super chat that I have to bring up right away from Diego Flores, who said, Gary's story had reinforced my conviction. Contract should have a what I say is how it goes clause, or like I call it, I paid, do it, and shut up.
Well, that's how I was in the meeting. But again, every time we said that, they just go, well, we have no more money. We can't. And it was like, we paid that. And they're like, yeah, but those 9 shots are really good, right? Yeah. Where's the rest of it?
I bet that happens quite often, doesn't it? Because like as Tom knows, is you have like the legendary story of when He-Man and the Masters of the Universe was made, the movie, where Canon, the film company, was supposed to put up half the funding, and Mattel was going to put up the other half. And Canon, they first spent Mattel's half of the money, and they said, okay, we now have a 90% finished movie, but we're out of we don't have anything. So you have to pay the rest as well. or we're not finishing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did I ever tell you my Master of the Universe story about Frank Langella?
No,
No,
please
do
do.
share.
I was at Fallbrook Cinema in San Fernando Valley. I think I'd gone to the Matrix. And we came out, Frank Langella was going into a movie. You know, this is the great thing about living in Hollywood and stuff, is that, you know, sometimes you see celebrities in their normal life. And my favorite thing to do usually is to go up and fawn over a celebrity, but with their, like, a role that they clearly, you know, aren't particularly a fan of, or some obscure role. Like, you know, I remember seeing Bill Paxton and saying, "Oh, I loved you in the Pat Benatar video," you know, and he was like, "Get away from me." But I saw Frank Langella in the foyer of the cinema, so I walked up and Frank Langella, I am a huge fan, and he was like, "Oh, thank you." I said, "Yeah, I thought you were amazing as Skeletor in Master of the Universe." And he went, "Oh, fuck off." I think you thought I was going to bring up, you know, like Dracula or something, or some, you know, wonderful, you know, stage role he'd done. But I thought, I'm going to bring up Master of the Universe and see how he reacts to it. And he was like, "Oh, fuck off."
Was it more jokingly though, fuck off, or was it like a real fuck off?
And it was kind of half joking, half real. I think, you know what I mean. It was just fun. I mean, the other one was, for years and years, I'd been a fan of Steve Zahn, who's not a very well known actor, but I always thought Steve Zahn.
I love his shit. Yeah.
Steve Zahn's great. He's brilliant in everything he's ever done. You know, I loved him in That Thing You Do, and I loved him in. He's great in so many things. But if you ever watch a favorite movie of mine, which is Crimson Tide, he's one of the Navy. He's one of the submarine guys in that, and he gets killed fairly early on. He has a metal plate hit him in the face and kill him. And I'd always said to my friends, if I ever see Steve Zahn, I'm gonna say, "Oh, I loved you in Crimson Tide when you got hit with that metal plate and died 4 minutes into the film." And sure enough, I was at Chateau Marmont, and he was sitting at the bar one night. I was there with Jerry Butler, actually, and I saw him, and I went up and I was like, "Steve Zahn," and he was like, "Hey, how are you?" And I said, "Man, I love your work. When you got hit with that metal plate in Crimson Tide, I was moved." And he was like, he just burst out laughing. And then what was really, really brilliant was he burst out laughing, and then he went, "Hey," you went, "aren't you the English guy from Project Greenlight?" And I went, "Yeah." And he went, "I love you, man." He went, "You're hilarious." And I was like, he said, "You're the guy who said, you're the director, why don't you fucking direct me, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Yeah, I loved you in that, man." So it was awesome. One of the strangest things that ever happened, but I've always thought that was funny. So I would say to people, if you ever see a star, you know, a famous person, don't go up to them and say, "Oh, I loved you in their biggest role." Think of some kind of weirdly uncanny, weird little movie role they did, you know, and go and mention that to them, because they'll usually have a better reaction for you, or they'll be like, "Really, you saw that?"
Well, at least that tells me that Steve has a sense of humor. You know what I mean? Like, he took that.
Oh, Steve, he was great. We sat at the bar for about an hour chatting, and then we left.
Cool.
Like, "See you, you know, great talking to you." And you know, he was really cool. And he was one of those actors that I've tried to get into so many roles in movies, but so many directors wouldn't cast him because they said he's a kiss of death. He's killed so many movies. He's kind of like they won't cast him, even though they know he's a good actor. But I was just my always thing was, I always loved him in That Thing You Do. He only has about 12 lines, but every line in it he makes an absolute doozy. He really does. So yeah, vastly underrated actor, and can play everything from funny to twisted and dark, and everything in between. So yeah, you know. But like I say, I think if you can ever remember actors' roles in strange little things they did, you know, then they kind of, I think.
Well, he even made movies like Saving Silverman, and what was that other one, Happy Texas, and some other ones that were like, they had no rhyme or reason to be any good, but since he was in them, they were actually watchable.
Yeah, Saving Silverman, the one where he's in the Neil Diamond Band with
I think so. Yes.
him and Jack Black. Yeah, I mean, he's great in that. You know, he's hilarious. Yeah.
But yeah. Gary, are you asking yourself questions here? No, I'm just kidding.
Because as you see on screen, Gary74988 says, "I really liked your Hellraiser film. Any plans for a sequel? I hope so." And to anyone wondering, Gary J. Tunnicliffe is the director of Hellraiser Judgment. For for those few of you who might not have figured that out. So, are there any sequel plans? Which I know the answer to, but there's a similar one. So why don't you push that?
Well, it's very kind of you, Gary, and what a great name you have. That's amazing. I don't think there will be any plans for a sequel that I'll be. I think Hellraiser right now is got its own sort of, who knows what's going on with that, with Clive taking back the rights and everything else. But I think my tenure on the Hellraiser front is done. But what I would say, Gary 749388, is if you watch the film I'm about to direct next, Chorophobia, which is about clowns, I think anyone who enjoyed Judgment is going to go, hang on a minute, these Cenobites have been switched out for clowns here, you know. So I've managed to do what I did with the Auditor and that kind of stuff, and transfer it into this new movie. So the short answer is no. I'd love to do a Hellraiser movie again. I would, and I wish I'd get a phone call from them and be invited to do it. But I think they've moved on, and whether it's a TV show or the reboot or whatever, I don't think anyone's going to be hurrying to call me. But I am utterly thrilled that as time has gone on, people continually reach out to me and say that they enjoyed it, and that it was one of the best of the sequels, kind of thing. And I've just got news today that the film is finally getting a UK release on DVD and streaming, and I've been asked to do some interviews by the publicity company. So clearly there is a market for it, and it's amazing to see that a film that was made for $350,000 with, barely no attention from the studio, kind of as an ash can movie, you guys call it, has found an audience, and people do like it, and it's really, really nice. And I thank everybody who continually reaches out and posts comment on Instagram or wherever saying, I saw this movie and I thought it was going to be shit, and it was actually surprised me, and I was actually entertained by it. So thank you.
Well, you can tell them where they can get a commentary pretty cheap.
Yeah, I know I do, and I was saying this. Someone actually commented. Someone wrote to me the other day and said thank you, and they got it, and I said go online. I said there's a director's commentary on YouTube with my great friends at Midnight's Edge. So again, I think it's never going to be massively appreciated, but people who find it kind of say, it's kind of like they were just genuinely surprised that it was anywhere near as good as it was. So, thank you.
Yeah, you're getting some love in the chat, so there you go.
I know, right? It's very, very kind. I really do. And people love the Auditor. Paul T. Taylor, who does conventions, he's constantly saying to me, dude, he's like, you have to do conventions. He's like, people love the Auditor. He's like, they're all like, when's the Auditor going to do a convention? Right.
Well, we've brought it up to ourselves. Like, we'd love to just see that character in its own TV show or movie. Like, just the idea of you could hang. Like, I know we've talked about it, in other times, but like, yeah, it'd be great to see a show with just that character as the center, and like every episode, like you said, like you'd have different souls that each week would be on trial, and it'd be an interesting kind of twisted kind of show. Yeah, a
good bookending character. He'd be a good Rod Serling.
Exactly. Yeah, like Crypt Keeper, what have you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And with that, we're going to do a couple of super chats, and then we're going to get back into the topic promised in the title and thumbnail. But first, a couple of super chats.
Well, we've been talking about computer stuff. The CG.
Yeah. And Spider Unlimited says for $9.99, thank you so much. I want my Finn and Rose spin-off in the vein of Johnny Loves Chachi. Well, unfamiliar to me, but I'm sure that's awesome. And Gerald Armstrong says, do you think Mark Hamill is being honest with fans with his disdain for the sequels, since he shares the politics of the heads of Lucasfilm? Oh, I think he's absolutely genuine about his thoughts on the sequels. I think he hates them.
Well, I think that's proof of somebody who can separate their art from their politics. Exactly. I mean, you may not agree with his politics, but I think he's made it pretty clear from day one that he was not happy with what was going down. And he's said it in several interviews, and I think the most glaring was where he said, when I signed on, my deal was no cameos, a run of the trilogy, and all this other stuff, and all that shit went out the window the moment Disney got on board. So yeah, I think he felt from the very start he was getting the shaft, and then after the insult of the Force Awakens, I'm sure the Last Jedi just really hit him hard, because of all the people that are involved in Star Wars, Mark Hamill was the one that seemed to embrace it the most because he's a fan, he's a sci-fi fan, he's a geek, so he gets it.
Do you not feel though that I mean, again, I don't want to throw gasoline on the fire. Maybe I am, but I'm just asking the question: Do we not seriously believe that had JJ been allowed to do the second and the third, it would have been a completely different ball game, and that really the rise of Skywalker, was really just JJ having to kind of like try and get back on track, fixing what Johnson had done in the second film, because it just felt like he was the one who threw all of it out the window and basically shat on all the ideas that Abrams had kind of instilled. And and from the very beginning of the movie, when Luke throws away the lightsaber, I was literally like, "What the f's going on here?" You know what I mean? Do you
actually have proof?
Do you think Abrams would have taken it in a different direction?
Yeah, we kind of have
absolutely. We know for 100% fact that he would have taken it a different direction, because Abrams, he planted seeds in the Force Awakens that were supposed to grow and mature over the course of 2 movies, to then be developed and explored in the 3rd movie. And then comes Rian Johnson, who, with the blessing of Kathleen Kennedy, decides that, no, I'm going to subvert expectations. So everything that was set up, I'm going to do the exact opposite. I'm going to close all of those story threads. And I remember when I first saw The Last Jedi in theaters, I've said this the whole time, like my feeling when the movie closed was this episode 8 or episode 9? Because this closed the story. Where the hell are they supposed to go now? And indeed, in episode 9, they had to basically start over from scratch with a brand new story, because there was almost nothing left to work with.
And we've seen potentially leaked treatments that JJ had put together. And of course, Simon Pegg and Daisy Ridley have both said that JJ had a completely different plan. And I've said this, and you may get a kick out of this. I've said flat out that The Rise of Skywalker and The Last Jedi were the world's most expensive Twitter fight between directors.
Right.
Basically, it was Rian Johnson going, "Fuck you, I'm going to do this," and then JJ going, "Oh, well, you fucking ruined my movie. Well, I'm going to fucking ruin yours," And they both spent billions of dollars to it, basically.
Yeah. Which is, I just think it's a terrible shame for such a beloved franchise that we all love, and we're owed more than that. I mean, I felt Force Awakens was obviously not a perfect movie, but I can watch Force Awakens and still enjoy it. And there are moments of it that I have it actually works for me as a film. The Last Jedi, I cannot watch. I cannot watch it. There's nothing about it I enjoy at all. It feels like pandering, and it feels like going off in its own thing. And then I just feel that, again, unfortunately, there are some scenes in Rise of Skywalker that I enjoy, but I just think it's trying to basically course correct so much that it's off the rails. It just doesn't work it's the best it probably could have been. I mean, I do trust JJ as a filmmaker and as a storyteller, but I think he was just literally trying to tie up loose ends and make it work as the final piece. But I definitely feel like it was the Last Jedi that just crippled the whole thing.
Literally, not just a trilogy, but Star Wars as a whole, because after The Last Jedi, Solo flopped. And maybe it would have flopped anyway, probably would, but it definitely flopped after the whole Last Jedi spiel of kill the past, or bury the past, kill it if you have to, which was kind of like the theme for the movie. And then after that, all the merchandise sales, they went out the window. Yeah, everything, every single indicator of a brand's health went down the drain in the aftermath of The Last Jedi. And that actually does kind of like take us a little bit to the main topic of today, because what happened in the aftermath of that was that 3/4 of a year after the release of The Last Jedi, then Bob Iger had a huge interview in the Hollywood Reporter, which was there as part of like a means to promote his then upcoming management book disguised as memoirs. And in it, he takes responsibility for Star Wars, and he says that the buck stops with him, and basically he took over very publicly a lot of the power that Kathleen Kennedy should have had as the president of Lucasfilm. And then afterwards, The Mandalorian happened. Now, of course, it was in development to begin with, but at some point, Jon Favreau got some level of autonomy over the Mandalorian, and the story is that he reports directly to Bob Iger, not Kathleen Kennedy. And there are now two factions of Lucasfilm. You have the Kathleen Kennedy faction of the people that she brought in, and you have the Favreau faction of the George Lucas and Star Wars fans that were there the whole time, plus the Marvel guys that he brought with him for The Mandalorian and for all the movies and everything that's coming in the future. So you had a schism there. But the most recent leaks, and this is where it gets interesting, we have an editorial in the making that will be up hopefully over the next 6-7 hours or so, hopefully. But I'll give you a little bit of a teaser from it, because the known Disney scooper, WDW Pro over at Pirates and Princesses, he wrote recently that the Kennedy faction, the ones who are responsible for Star Wars The High Republic. Gary, are you familiar with The High Republic?
No.
The publishing initiative. Well, this is like the next big thing to save Star Wars. It's the spiritual heir to the sequel trilogy and to The Last Jedi and all of those things. It's set 200 years before there were any Skywalkers.
Okay.
And it's a massive mega story that is told across books and Marvel Comics and nowhere else. So it's a pure publishing initiative. And this premiered on the 5th of January. That's when it first premiered. So of course you can tell from like the cover what this is. This is more ideological, very ideological driven. You can say is the thing with this thing right here. And they were so super excited for it. But then, according to DW Pro, the insider, or the scooper with inside connections, the Kennedy faction are up in arms because they didn't know about Luke Skywalker appearing in the end of The Mandalorian. Because again, Jon Favreau reports directly to Iger, and Kennedy and her team, including the Lucasfilm story group, are cut completely from that equation, so they don't know what they're doing. Only thing that they know is that they had worked really hard on this High Republic thing, and now no one cares because the Mandalorian stole all of their thunder. What are your thoughts on a company in that kind of a position where you have two factions that are rivaling against each other in the same company? And one of the things that they dislike is that it's very obvious from the Mandalorian and the High Republic that come from the same company, but this betrays that there's no unifying vision because they're trying to achieve two very different things. One is trying to move away from the Skywalker saga, the other is trying to bring it back. And Bob Iger and Disney, of course, they are all in favor of Favreau and The Mandalorian because that actually has growing success over time. It sells toys, it pushes Disney Plus, it's getting fans back and reinvigorated, whereas the High Republic, by all appearances, appears to just push people more and more away. With that backdrop, what are your general thoughts on a situation like that?
Yeah, I think my general feeling on the whole situation right now would be, I had a huge amount of respect for Kathleen Kennedy. She's been around a long time. She's worked on a lot of movies. Obviously, she had a great relationship with Frank Marshall, and has clearly been in the industry a long time. But I don't think she's done anything good for the Star Wars franchise, I think, and I really am surprised that she's still being allowed to do what she's doing in it. And clearly, Jon Favreau has come in with a fresh take on it, and a love of the material. Really, my fundamental question would be, if I had a chance to interview Kathleen, would be, do you like Star Wars? Are you a fan of it? Do you enjoy it? Is it something you're passionate about, or is it just a gig for you where you're getting paid? And you kind of inherited this. Because I think, unfortunately, she's done a huge amount of damage, and I think it's a shame if I think she should have had the kudos to step away from it. This is a person who's made an enormous amount of money, and if she wants to make some kind of political statement movies, or and woke content, then go and do it with something else, and leave Star Wars to people who are passionate about it and really, really have a love for it. Because clearly what Favreau's done with Mandalorian, he's tapped into that. You can feel his passion for it, feel his love for it, and it radiates to the screen, and he gets it. I think I'm not saying he'll get it right forever. You can only, if you're on an upward trajectory, you're eventually going to stumble at some point. But clearly, he's a fan who's making movies for fans of the franchise. Simply by that sequence of Skywalker turning up. I mean, the excitement of people seeing the X-wing fly in and all that. It's like clearly Favreau gets it, and you can imagine Jon Favreau sitting in a meeting game, and what we're going to do at the end. We're going to have the Mando pinned down, and there's no way out, and one person's going to come and turn up, and it's like, who can it be? And of course it's going to be Luke Skywalker. And he knows that's going to give everyone a hard on. Most of all, it's going to give him a hard on. So I think it's a shame that this is kind of in-house bickering, and it's basically what it's doing. It's doing a disservice to the films. I mean, I think she allowed the Rian Johnson situation to happen, so I lay the blame at her feet, and I think it's time that she should just step away from it and let it go into the hands of people who are doing good things with it, like Favreau. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and this now brings us to yesterday's announcement of the new Star. Well, actually, it wasn't an announcement, but the reveal, I should say, of the new writer on Kevin Feige's Star Wars movie.
Well, before you jump to that, Andre, we should probably get Gary's reaction to a couple of these characters, especially the one that's on screen right now. This is Mr. Leox Gyasi.
Okay.
He is obviously modeled after Matthew McConaughey, and he was described as Han Solo meets Matthew McConaughey, but a few, especially the guys over at Echo Base Network, noticed in the name here, Leo Gyasi. If you look at that, it says Leo X is gay if you kind of rearrange the letters just slightly. Now, if you know anything about the Pope Leo X, which would be Leo the 10th or whatever, he was gay. But not only that, he was a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
So, that was not very well.
It's not the most masculine of poses, is it either?
No, it's not very well hidden. Not very well hidden.
You have to show the paint over, because that's even better than the official art.
Yeah, the paint over is amazing. And then we got furry gremlins.
So this then is Kathleen Kennedy's The High Republic.
Yeah, and then we got an elf in space for some reason. And then there's Ram Jamaram. This is supposed to be a guy. and that's the fun.
I get the feeling that that this is that Kathleen Kennedy's trying to when someone, isn't into heavy metal, and it's like having your mom saying, "Oh, I'll write a heavy metal song for you," or it's like, "Mom, you don't get heavy metal. You can't write it." No, I know what it sounds like. Have some guitars and some drums and some long hair, and it'll all be great. It's like I don't think you really get it, and I understand that you've been doing this a long time and you've made a lot of films, but I don't think you should be in charge of the cruise line here. It's like. It's like give it to people who really know it and care about it. Whereas I think they're trying to, we'll hire a screenwriter who did this, who we'll hire that and do that, and it's like, again, I just think it's time for her to step away. And she'll won't have a problem. I mean, if they ask her to step away, she get an enormous golden parachute anyway. She's probably made enormous amounts of money and was a very good line producer type person in charge. Good at taking a project. I just don't think she's the person who should be in charge of this particular beloved franchise. And I think what definitely needs to happen is you need somebody like a Feige to basically say, look, guys, let's plan the next 10 years, of where we're going to go with it, and let's make it fucking cool. You know what I mean? Let's not try and pander. Let's just make it cool. And what's cool? Ask Jon Favreau; he'll tell you. Well, Star Wars fans will love this. They don't like that. I mean, we all know the things that we had a problem with in all the Star Wars movies. I mean, and again, it is interesting to me. You get slammed for making a Hellraiser film for $350,000, and people say, "Oh, it's rubbish." But you do get to see that you can have $200 million and still fuck it up.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think we've seen that. Again, it's just like I've always said. It's you can have all the time in the money in the world and all of the facilities at your hand, but really, if you look at the Star Wars movies that have come out in the last 10, 15 years, really, the truth is. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you don't agree with me, but to me, Rogue One was really kind of like the best it got. You know what I mean? I really loved Rogue One. I thought it was fucking great. And but it has its
issues, but it's the best we've gotten out of the Disney Star Wars. Yeah,
right. It's kind of the best we've had out of that bunch. And it was a pretty dark movie. Had some pretty dark elements because, again, I remember sitting in the theater watching Rogue One. And having this weird feeling, my wife's not a big Star Wars fan. She's not. She goes along with it and watches with me. She enjoys the spectacle of it. But halfway through the movie, I remember taking a deep breath in and kind of going, "Oh my God!" And she said, "What?" And I said, "I just realized everyone in this movie is going to die. They're all going to die." And she's like, "Why?" And I was like, "Because they have to. Because it's none of these people survive into A New Hope, so they're all gonna fucking die. How cool is this? And I think the team behind that got it right, and then we ended up going off it. Like I say, I thought Awakens was pretty good, but then I thought it all just turned to shit when they just did Last Jedi. So I think clearly. Favreau seems to have tapped into it. I think his enthusiasm spills out into it. And I think Iger should turn around and say, Kathleen, thank you very much. Here's $50 million. We're going to give you some projects, a little production deal, and you're going to go away and make something else. But, why don't we let John just kind of, he really gets this, and let him kind of, let him run with it now,
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I think you're actually on the right path there. Because right after the High Republic news went, public, we got this leaked, basically, as far as we can tell, because they have no official confirmation, but
it is confirmed. It's leaked straight from the Favreau faction, and there's a little bit of a backstory here. And
and I knew you were going to get into this.
Yeah, because here's like the thing.
Here's your answer, Gary.
That you mentioned, Gary, that Kevin Feige should be the architect. The man behind Jon Favreau apparently has been Kevin Feige the whole time. He's been the shadow architect behind what Favreau is doing. He certainly helped out a little bit, just like he helped out Sony so that their Venom movie wasn't a complete disaster, and they actually listened to him with that. And because when you get Favreau, they haven't just gotten Favreau, they've gotten the entire Marvel crew, including Kevin Feige, who is who's the Shadow Master, the Phantom Menace, if you will, behind the scenes.
Well, I almost got to speak for Rob here via Tom Rothman when I say, no, that's not true. I edited the whole thing myself. That's what he claimed in the fucking interview.
Really?
Remember that?
Oh yeah, but so yeah,
Not
so
those
that's a
exact
pretty
word, but yeah.
but yeah, so that's actually pretty cool. And again, Favreau and his team of Marvel guys that are building a whole universe from The Mandalorian, and The Mandalorian isn't a separate thing. That's the equivalent of the Iron Man. That's the starting point. And then they're branching out from there into multiple other series. We already know of the Book of Boba Fett and the Rangers of the New Republic and the Ahsoka Tano, and that is then all part of this Mando universe that's going to build towards Thrawn from the Steve Zahn novels, and probably that's the movie that Kevin Feige will be the one officially producing. And yesterday, Deadline Hollywood reported that Michael Waldron, the writer behind Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and the upcoming Disney Plus series Loki, which takes place in one of those multiverses of madness, will be the one writing this movie. Now, there are a couple of things here, because one of the rumor that we've been hearing consistently is that the sequel trilogy, they want to get rid of it. One thing is that they never want to talk about it ever again, but for the fans, they want to find a way to make the whole thing just go away, discard it to a separate timeline so it never happened, and they can go forward in a different direction. Isn't it funny how you now have a Marvel writer that has 2 upcoming credits, both of them related to a multiverse, writing a Star Wars movie, when we have the rumors that they want to get rid of the sequel trilogy?
I mean, clearly, Marvel has been a huge success, and I think that's probably why they're tapping into it, because they've got it right. I mean, I do think that we're in danger of oversaturation with this stuff. It can be a bit too much. Maybe it's time to take a breath and just kind of pump the brakes a little bit, and then kind of make a plan and let the audience get hungry for this stuff again. I am worried that we're seeing, Book of Boba Fett and this and this and this and this, and it all tends to look a bit the same after a while to me. But I guess if there's a hunger for it, then sure. But I'm a bit concerned that it's you can have too much of a good thing, you know what I mean, and it might it'll become again in the same way as Star Trek, you know what I mean. You can have too much of this stuff sometimes,
Yeah, especially if it's bad, because there's the thing. I think that you can have too much if it's bad, but if it's good, it's going to be difficult. And the thing with that, many things are announced, but next year we're getting the Book of Boba Fett.
They're doing a spin-off. They're going to do Scotty the Engineer, and they're going to do the Travels of Spock. You're going to go. It just gives more room for slip up. You know what I mean, and more chances for it to. For the control to be consistent, and to I worry that again, even with the Marvel stuff, I do see you do look at stuff and think clearly that's more of a TV Netflixy kind of show than a movie, and I'm a fan of movies, but obviously Mando has proved that it was done very, very well and has captured the audience. But obviously we have to see how it goes on from now. Now that the child has moved on, and what will keep that interest alive.
Yeah,
but again, I think,
that's to be good. That's the thing.
Really, what Favreau's done very, very well, and what Favreau did was he looked at classic storytelling, motives with. Looking at kind of like classic Japanese kind of like storytelling and incorporated in Star Wars. And I think that's a very smart thing to do. Again, if someone was to do, that with Star Wars and do a Star Wars movie that's the Seven Samurai, I'd buy into that. If you did a Seven Samurai movie, but set in a Star Wars kind of world with all new characters, I think that would be great as well. I think, again, tried and tested stories that work really, really well, told in a different galaxy and a different generation, will always be good, because we've already seen that story works.
Indeed. So yeah, let's hope for the best there. But still, I think it's interesting, because you came with the same thing that basically all of us want to see, that Bob Iger or Bob Chapek, one of them, should just go and tell Kathleen Kennedy that, yeah, well, thank you for your service, and go and play in that corner over there now and take this paycheck, while Favreau and his team, they clearly got the handle of this. But instead, you still have this Lucasfilm divided, and they're operating under two different strategies, which we see very clearly now with the High Republic, and also some of the upcoming Disney shows that come from that particular camp that will continue that agenda. What I find is puzzling is why they haven't shut that down and invest money, throw more good money after bad on the things that the audience clearly has rejected. And the High Republic, you saw the pictures. Well, so did audiences, and they've kind of they haven't flocked to it. I mean, like, there was an article that tried to make a success out of 200,000 copies of the first Marvel issue covering that story. So being shipped to stores. And they failed to mention that 1 million copies were sold of the first issue of Star Wars period when Disney first acquired it.
Well, I still say the High Republic is nothing but a distraction for the KK clan.
Yeah.
And this news was dropped and leaked or what have you to take away the thunder. It's like, oh, that High Republic thing, that's cute.
Yeah, that's what I think too. Like, just at the same time that this was dropped, they leaked the information. Oh, but Kevin Feige has this coming with the writer from the Multiverse of Madness. Be excited about that instead. And that's exactly what happens. Now, not only you have a company divided, but you have a company divided of two factions that are actively fighting against each other in public.
Right. And to be clear, we've heard already, obviously Kathleen Kennedy and Jon Favreau have a friendly professional working relationship, in quotations, meaning obviously in public, they're not going to say anything. They don't even say, they haven't had any blow-ups. They haven't had any fights that we've heard of or anything like that. This is more so like a Cold War at this point, but it's heating up. Is that a good analogy, you think, Andre?
Yeah, I think so. I'm just curious at how long this will.
I don't think there'll be any kind of war. I think, honestly, the truth is, guys, is that Favreau doesn't need to war with anybody, because the proof of the pudding's in the eating, and he knows how successful his stuff is, so he doesn't have to say or do anything. Whereas Kennedy's on the back foot. But I just think, unfortunately, Kathleen Kennedy doesn't understand the temperature of Star Wars and doesn't understand the world she's in. I think she's an outsider who doesn't get it. And looking at the High Republic stuff is a perfect example of that, of like somebody saying, "Oh, I know, I can do this Star Wars thing," and it's like, you can. You're not in that world. You don't get it. It's like. And like I said before, it's like trying to have somebody who's written baked cakes for a living suddenly making heavy metal music. It's like, I know you think you know what it is and you understand the nuts and bolts of filmmaking and what the story beat should be, but it's you need to have a passion for this. It needs to be made by people who understand it, know it, and love it. That's what Feige was for Marvel. Feige was a guy who entered the system at Marvel, worked his way up, and was a huge fan of Marvel and knows everything about it and loves it, and that's where the passion came from. And you need people who understand, I think, this stuff. Like I say, people ask me sometimes about, would you want to direct a romantic comedy? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't want to do a romantic comedy. Yeah, I enjoy watching a good romantic comedy, but I like making dark, weird, creepy shit because that's what I like. You know what I mean? I don't want to make... even if someone said to me, "Hey, here's a shitload of money," I'd be like, "No, I'm not the guy to do it." I'd I'd rather make something low and weird and creepy and bizarre and disturbing than get paid a ton of money to make something I really don't understand, you know.
No, that's understandable.
And people don't do that though. People they just see the money and they go, oh yeah, I can do that. I've made films. I worked with George Lucas. I worked here. Yeah, of course I can do it. But I'm surprised that somebody just hasn't gone. Thank you. You know, you've done very well, and you know we're going to give you a production deal. You can go and make a couple of little projects, and let John take this from now on. He seems to have a pretty good. I'm surprised they just haven't put him in charge of the whole thing.
Kind of he is. I think it's more Kevin. But here's my thing with KK is I don't understand how somebody can be around somebody for 30 years and not pick up any residual talent at all. Like none.
Well, I think you either got it or you don't.
Well, because she's obviously has talent. I don't care if I hung out with like 20 minutes with Steven Spielberg, I'd have more talent than this woman. I've said it before. I get it where people like give her so much fucking praise, but it's not hard to be Steven Spielberg's producer. You call New York City, you go, hey, can we get Brooklyn Bridge shut down? This is Kathleen Kennedy. We're producing the new Steven Spielberg film. Oh, right away, Miss Kennedy, no problem. But if it's like, hey, this is Kevin Smith's producer, can we get the Brooklyn Bridge shut down? No. You know, it's not hard to be Steven Spielberg's producer. I'm sorry.
I suspect, though, Kathleen Kennedy was an extremely good line producer in UPM, you know what I mean, who basically was a person that you gave a budget to, and she came in on the numbers and did the job and ran a tight ship and got it all done. And I've seen this a lot of times where you get people who are great, management, good at, running they're good at running a company, but they're not good at coming up with the products. That's probably the best way I would say. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you need the good designers who can come up with the product, but then you need people who can run the shop floor and make sure that things arrive on time and leave on time, and these people get paid and these people get fed, and and they've got a good understanding of post and everything else and where money needs to go and how to do it. But they're not creatives, And yes, she's in a creative field, but. And maybe she would be, like I said, maybe she could go away and make some brilliant $9 million movie, like The Help or something, you know what I mean? Or something that's more of a passion project for her. I just, like I say, I'm sure that if you were to sit down and ask her genuinely and say, do you like Star Wars? Do you go home and read Star Wars books? Are you into this? Is it what you watch on your TV at night? What are you watching? Are you watching Star Wars? She probably go, no, I'm not really.
She watches Saturday Night Live and wonders where all the women are behind the camera. That's the way she thinks. No, I'm not trying to pick on her, but at the same time, I feel like, people give her way too much credit for what she has done or really hasn't done. This is the lady that said, well, what if he got the dog instead? Like if you've ever heard that interview with Spielberg.
Well, again, I think there are times when people like that in those positions start to claw at what's popular. It's like suddenly going, oh, who's number one in the charts right now? Put them in the movie, and what's popular right now? That is,
That's literally exactly what she did. And that's why there's so many directors to have come and gone, because they were hot the moment that she hired them, like the guys from Game of Thrones. And then season 8 happened, and then they were out the door.
Yeah, it comes down to the simple phrase I've always said: you either replicate or you innovate. And there are people who just replicate and try and do what's just been done around. And I think Favreau's innovating, and I think Kathleen Kennedy's replicating.
I think you're right. And I loved your analogy earlier of her being like your grandma or mom trying to write you a heavy metal song. I think that is perfect. And speaking of perfect, I think we need to get to some super chats.
Yes, we have a few super chats outstanding.
Perfectly great amount of them.
Yeah. I won't be able to show them on screen because StreamYards be like that, so you shall have to listen very carefully, for I shall say this only once. Mills sends for 14 South African runs. Which sci-fi IPs survive the woke apocalypse? Well, I would say the ones that are dormant right now. Those ones. And Mr. Tickletrunks...
Well, I have a feeling it sure as hell ain't going to be 007.
We can write that one off right away. And Mr. Tickletrunk sent us a super sticker of a cute little kitty or puppy. Roger Haynes sent another super sticker of a thumbs up. Marty sent us 20 Canadian dollars. Thank you so much, saying, "It's New Year's, folks. I hope you people had a good time over the holidays." So I thank you. I hope everyone out there had that as well. And Diego Flores says he refers to something you said earlier, Tom, and says, "Tom, that movie you described already exists. It's an animated series called The Adventures of T-Rex. Now, if you get the rights to that and make a movie or a new series, shut up and take my money."
I'm going to pretend I didn't hear about that and just continue to push nunchucking dinos.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to do.
And BB Cooper says something that I certainly subscribe to. "Gary always has the best stories. I could listen all day." Yeah, it's always a pleasure to have Mr.
Well, he always
join
surprises us with a new one. That's the best part. Is like just when you thought he's told you every story that he could possibly tell you, he's got a million more to tell you. That's the great thing.
I have so many. We could literally do a story time corner with Gary every week.
Don't give us ideas.
Okay, you just gave me an idea. We're going to make that happen.
I warned you. I warned you. It was too late. Too late.
I want a smoking jacket and like a big book, Gary's tome of stories. I remember a time when I was on set with Rennie Harlan.
No, I have an even better idea. The the auditor sits down and tells stories.
Good Lord, there you go.
That would require you to get in makeup every time. Yeah.
Or deep fake it. But anyway, moving on. Alex Acera says, on one hand, if the ST was good all the way, I never would have gotten into the EU. But on the other, ST would be sequel trilogy. On one hand, if the sequel trilogy was good all the way, I never would have gotten into the extended universe. But on the other, I never would have without its failure. So yeah, there's that. And the Big Red Bear also sent us 20 Canadian dollars. Thank you so much. And he says, "I'm not a fan of Star Wars anyway, so I'm happy these fools burned it to the ground. I'm mostly disappointed that they're somehow resurrecting it now. However, can I say Episode 7 was bad too. Thought Rian Johnson did make the worst Star Wars films." Yeah, well, there's room for every opinion, so feel free to have that one. And Thunderstorm says, "The two factions of Star Wars is like a Twix, except Kennedy's side is a turd and not candy. All for ideology without story." Yeah, we have some comedians out there in the chat, which is always a delight.
I'll never look at a Twix in the same way. I'll always be scared which one I pick now. I'll be like, which one shall I?
Well, I don't know, Gary. You may have seen it, but Andre, I doubt you have. For a while, there was this ad campaign for Twix. It was like, vote for which side you like more, the left or the right side. Yeah. And I literally had a friend who thought there was like, I don't know, I think I like the left side better. I'm like, dude, they're the same fucking thing. It's a joke. Like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Why are we friends?
And Mark C asks, "Do you think the Last Jedi documentary, the director and the Jedi, was designed to indoctrinate the viewer?" Well, certainly to influence. I will say that. And Silver Nova says, "Why can't Disney mess with another IP like the Garbage Pail Kids movie? It would be difficult to make that film any worse."
Actually, I wouldn't want them anywhere near the Garbage Pail Kids.
Yeah, Tom likes it.
I don't like it, but it's like one of those movies that's so bad it's good kind of thing.
Guilty pleasure, I believe is the term you're looking for.
I don't even know if I'd call it a pleasure. It's just like The Room with what's his face and Howard the Duck to some people and stuff like that. Just,
And Mr. Tickletrunk says, we're almost caught up now. "Gary's got it in one. Church lady trying to be cool," as for your comments about Kathleen Kennedy. And Star Chaser NX says, "Thrawn would not make a good main antagonist. Yorus Kabauth, the insane Jedi, also from Sound's Thrawn trilogy, would be far better. Well, maybe there's room for him. One does not need to rule out the other. And Dr. Coffin Nail says, KK, what do you think of the High Republic? Me, Ram Jammit, ma'am. And Thunderstorm says that the woke republic equals, he says woke republic, and then he sends like an emoji of pile of dung, so that's pretty telling. And then we have a question for you from Willie Woodward, Gary, and he says, Gary, what are your views on spectacle? Do you think audiences, especially teenage and 20s, can love a movie without the crazy spectacle?
Yeah, I still fundamentally believe that a good movie is a good movie no matter what, and this is what we said about Wonder Woman way back when. When people were saying, I think Grace Randolph and people were saying like, oh, the reason streaming is not working, or people aren't going to go and see Wonder Woman is, because of streaming. It's like, no, if it's a good movie, if the movie's a really good movie, then people will see it on streaming and it will boost the numbers and everything else. And we knew Wonder Woman wasn't going to be very good, and it wasn't very good. So it hasn't had the effect that they hoped it would on HBO Max. The product has to be good, and it can be, you can still get good product without spectacle. Now, I'm older now, obviously. I'm not a teenager or in my 20s, so I have a different perspective of movies. But there are movies that I've seen in the last couple of years that I loved. Like I thought Whiplash was unbelievable. I love Whiplash, and I can watch it again and again and again. And what spectacle is there in that movie apart from the performances? That's the spectacle to me. I think Blumhouse have clearly proved it, that you don't need spectacle. I mean, they're not spending a great deal of money on their movies, but something like Invisible Man I thought was very, very effective. So I mean, I think there's definitely less spectacle in those movies. So and someone's just said there, Joker doesn't really have a great example, because it's character driven and it's great dialogue, and you're involved. I mentioned a movie like The Help. I think The Help's a great movie, and I think.
Or I mentioned Cobra Kai earlier. That's another one that doesn't have. I mean, yeah, you got the stunts in it, but they're still not. It's not like superhero level stuff. Yeah.
No, so if something has a good story and it's told well and acted well, then it doesn't need to have a great spectacle to be effective. Yeah, if you can get that kind of story, what's the thing that's Mandalorian's based on? Isn't it called something on the Cub, or
Lone Wolf and Cub.
Lone Wolf and Cub. So I would imagine that Lone Wolf and Cub doesn't have a great deal of spectacle in it, and I'm sure it was very, very effective, clearly effective enough to inspire Favreau.
So it's amazing. It looks like something Quentin Tarantino could have directed.
So there you go, right? So you've got the non-spectacle version that's really, really good and effective, and then you've got the spectacular version with Mandalorian. So it's a perfect example of that they both work, And again, even with Tarantino, I don't think Tarantino films are particularly spectacular, but are always enjoyable and empowering. And a film like Reservoir Dogs, for instance, which is made on a shoestring. Pulp Fiction, still a movie I enjoy, all the time, and enjoyed that when I was younger. So. I think the short answer is that you don't need spectacle to have a powerful, enjoyable blockbuster movie. Right. But if it's done right, because again, it really comes down to
Fat Man was another great one that just come out that wasn't probably too expensive. Fat Man, have you seen that one yet with Mel Gibson?
I haven't seen that yet. No, I haven't.
Fantastic.
But so it really comes down to the simple facts of like I've always said, this is what the whole thing about I think Villeneuve is going to shoot himself in the foot by basically saying you have to go and see Dune in the cinemas. Dune's going to have a lot of spectacle, but it can't. I will eat my hat. I will donate $1,000. I say this right now. I'll donate $1,000 to whatever charity Denis Villeneuve wants me to give it to. If Dune makes $1 billion, it will not make $1 billion because it's just too lofty. It'll look really, really pretty. The cast isn't that great. People don't know who Timothée Chalamet is. And I love Dune. I do. I adore it. But I know it's not a commercially viable product. It isn't. It just isn't a commercially viable product. And people are going to try and blame, it's the pandemic and it's been crippled and it's waited too long and all this kind of horseshit. If Wonder Woman had been a great movie, it wouldn't have mattered whether it came out a year from now. It's like the Bond movie. I know the Bond movie isn't very good. I haven't seen it, but I've watched the trailers. And it just doesn't look very good. There's nothing in that trailer that you go, wow, that looks really fantastic. Quite the opposite.
We know that the trailers are as good as it gets on that particular one because we know more.
Yeah. Of course. So then it's what I mean. I think we generally, by and large, there's very few times that I've seen a trailer for a movie, especially these days where trailers show so much, and we have so many trailers up the ass by the time a film comes out, that we've basically seen the film, and you can get a pretty good idea of, is it going to be any good or is it not? You know what I mean? And so many times now you see a movie and you go, yep, that's kind of where I thought it was going to be based on the trailers I'd seen. And I think we knew Wonder Woman was going to be bloody awful because the terrible cheetah character looked like a bad CGI character, And
well, I could have forgiven that if the story was decent, but we knew early on that the story was going to be garbage. Yeah, because we got a story leak pretty early from that, and it didn't change one bit. And it's just like, really, they're going with this?
Classic case of a director being given too much power because the studio are going, oh my God, you made such a great successful movie. We should just give you all of the chips. We should just give you it all and let you run with it. Even if you haven't written that many things and you're not a superhero writer, we should just let you run with the whole bloody thing. And this happens so many times where people get given too much and they run with it, and it just it kills,
No, and I understand what you're saying. Like, even in a non-pandemic situation, Dune would have a completely uphill battle to face. One thing I did notice, though, and I may have brought this up to you before, but I know Mr. H and a few other people have noticed, when the trailer came out, within a month, it had outpaced the Batman trailer, which had already been out for a few months.
It's a great looking trailer.
And so, like, I feel like there may have been some kind of pent-up want for it, or curiosity, but $1 billion worth, I don't know. Yeah.
These days, for a movie to make $1 billion, it all comes down to one simple thing. It will be about those first reviews and people simply saying, oh my God, you've got to go and see this movie. It's fantastic. I mean, and I've given Villeneuve, I'm going to tell you something that's going to shock you. I've watched Blade Runner 2049 8 times in the last 4 days.
Really?
Yeah. I've watched it 8 times in the last 4 days. A movie that I didn't particularly enjoy in the cinemas, I've watched it 8 times, and I stand by it now. Is that it's got certain scenes that are very good. It's a beautifully pretty movie, but it's just not. It just doesn't work as a whole thing.
You know what's funny about that is how movies like that I don't. There's been several movies like that where I didn't really care for them the first time out, but then I found myself just continually going back to them. And I don't know why, but yeah, I don't know. It's weird about that.
To me, that's always been the power of the one director I've always gone and said this about is Stanley Kubrick. Is that I don't think there was ever a Stanley Kubrick movie that I ever saw and enjoyed the first time. I think every one of his movies I saw the first time was like, oh, that was okay. And the second time I'll be like, oh, it was that. It's pretty good.
The only exception for me would have been Dr. Strangelove.
Right.
That one I adored the first time I saw it, and I'd watch it a million times. But I think you're right, because even 2001, the first time I was kind of like, what the hell did I just watch? It took me a while it had to sit with me a while before I finally got it. I not so much got it. But
better the more you watch them. But with Villeneuve's 2049, there are certain. I mean, what's odd about that film is it feels tiny in certain. I mean, like there are scenes with just like 1 or 2 people in an office, or in a little room somewhere, and then you've got these elaborately, beautifully lit scenes, but it just doesn't work as a whole thing, See someone there saying Full Metal Jacket grew on me. They do. Kubrick's movies have this.
What's better is he's got a picture from Tusk.
Oh well, there's a vastly underrated, weird little odd movie, But Kubrick's movies did have that power, and I think it comes down to a testimony of the writing and the layering and everything else in it. I have to concur with Queen Elizabeth. I actually am not a fan of 2001. I would say. I know that's going to sound like a travesty, but
Andre's heart just broke. I heard it.
I'm very happy with or perfectly understand. Doesn't change my views on it.
No, I know, but I know that's one of your favorites.
But I love FMJ. I love Shining. I love Eyes Wide Shut. I really do. I love Eyes
That's
Wide
one of his
Shut.
only ones I've never really revisited too much. I'm not saying I wouldn't. But no, like even Full Metal Jacket, that's one of the only ones I really, when I watch it, most of the times I'll quit at that logical ending of the film. I don't go to Vietnam. It's like, why did you go to Vietnam?
It's weird, right?
Why,
Isn't it?
Stanley?
FMJ is 2 movies. It's 2 movies. It is amazing. You can literally watch it until they get a bit, and you can say, "Oh, I'm going to stop now, and I'll watch the next one." The next.
I
piece
very rarely finish it. Very rarely. It's like I just look at it and I'm like, why didn't he recut this or just cut that all out? Like you could have recut it like to where you had both stories running simultaneously, maybe, because otherwise it loses all steam after that. Your climax is in the middle of the movie.
What I would say to you about Eyes Wide Shut is go back and watch it and realize that the movie, to me, what it's about a man who's at every turn he's going to do something wrong, sinful. He doesn't do it. He something either stops him or stops him going through it, and you know what I mean. And it's weird because there is all this darkness going on around him, but he's actually quite a moral character, and he's broken down by it. It's got some brilliant subtext, some really fantastic subtext, and again, it's a testimony to Kubrick hates his party because he did.
If that's true, it's probably just because it really wasn't his movie. It was more
studio picture. Yeah,
studio picture kind of thing. And he was brought on after the movie was already started. So yeah. But no, like
if I'm gonna watch a Sword and Sandals movie with Kirk Douglas and Tony Curtis, then I have to watch Vikings because to me that is a classic. And someone should remake that film. And you think what a brave movie that is. That you imagine these days making a movie like The Vikings where your 2 leading actors, one has his eye ripped out and half his face is gouged, and the other leading actor has one arm. It's like those are the leading men in the film, and they're both disfigured. You know what I mean? It's incredible.
I still have never seen that film.
You've never seen The Vikings?
No, I just haven't had a chance to.
Wow.
But no, I pretty much have. I got Kubrick's filmography and.
Watch The Vikings sometime and watch the final fight scene on top of the tower and think, how did they do this with that stuntman? And how dangerous was it for them? But the Vikings.
I'll add it to my list along with one of the ones that was in the super chats. Speaking of, I think we should get back to Andre.
Yeah, let's get back to a couple of super chats. The previous one we had was, let's see, Take Your 610 says, Falcon Winter Soldier fight rebels at the Capitol. Yeah, there you go. That's a nice way of mixing pop culture into into real world events. And Goose the Loose says, worst part of High Republic is its lack of novelty. Mando has novelty to spare. Wise Boy Scout Jedi are old news. Underworld bounty hunters are in. Yeah, exactly. There you go. And Jedi Master Zootopia says, Andre, thank you for your video on the Mask of Zorro. It was great. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And then he continues, I was glad that you linked to the movie. I didn't know it was free online. Yes, indeed. He's, of course, talking about our New Year special, the Mask of Zorro retrospective of the 1920 original, a movie without which we wouldn't have had Batman. So see that retrospective for the full story, and then click the link in the description for that video, and you'll be taken to the full movie itself, which is now public domain. So we uploaded it to Midnight's Edge Live archives. So cool. Yeah, you'll find it there.
And the version we have there is the actual full version. But,
yes, there are multiple versions of it, and the version that we uploaded is the longest, most complete version of the movie that exists, with the absolute best musical score that you're going to find for it. So yeah, definitive version right there.
The UK version is in high definition, but it's missing like 45 minutes of the movie or something.
Yeah,
like
exactly. So then what's the point? You want the almost 2 hour version, not the slightly more than 1 hour, even if it's slightly better resolution. And the one that we have uploaded is more than adequate, better than most versions out there.
Yeah.
Then we already pointed out that John Apocalypse said that Joker doesn't really have spectacle. Yeah. And Jorge Burgos Jr. said, Tom, if you have an Amazon wish list, watch Akira.
Actually, that's a movie I've almost bought a few times on Blu-ray, but I heard the recent remaster was not the greatest, or there was issues with it. So I've seen bits and pieces of the film. I'm aware, it's just been many years since I've actually watched it. But yeah, it's definitely one that's on my list of ones to have in my collection.
And Mills says, for 35 South African rands, we need to seriously have a conversation for the soul of Star Trek. Kurtzman versus the world. Oh yeah, we'll absolutely do that at some point, but not today. But we'll get to that. And Joel Blom sent us 20 Swedish krona. Tack så mycket. Movies had a great decade in the 90s. And Primal Plasma. Yeah, and Primal Plasma says Blade Runner 2049 has the exact same appeal Blade Runner did in the 80s. It's a good Saturday afternoon sci-fi movie that you can watch over and over. And then Diego Flores said, Gary, a super chat gave me an idea for you. Have you ever thought of making an Event Horizon type movie, but take more Warhammer 40k influences for the hell aspect? I believe you could bring it all together.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. Unfortunately, a movie like that just requires a lot of budget, and those aren't the budgets I'm getting offered, I'm afraid. So I mean, I have to kind of I tend to write lower budget fare, or get invited to. So maybe if my next film is a huge, massive success, someone will give me a ton of money and say, do something like that. And I would, absolutely. I thought Event Horizon had some brilliant stuff in it. But right now, I'm still, a bottom feeder.
Hear me out, Gary. Nunchucking dinosaurs.
Clearly, you have a passion for this.
No, it's just I would not. I mean, I would love to make movies, but like, I don't know how we even got to the conversation. But I'm like, yeah, you guys don't understand. I would make shit that nobody would watch. It's like I would make a bunch of monster movies.
Very Kung Fury to me. It sounds like Kung Fury 2.
Yeah. I mean, and it wouldn't necessarily all be out to be goofy either. Like I would just be because I'm just totally into like just weird monster movies and creatures. Like when you said
little hands, how would T-Rex be able to do with nunchucks? He'd be hitting himself in the nose all the time.
The brilliant part. You just don't get it. You got to make that work.
Long ass nunchuck.
Yeah, just long nunchuck chain.
Yeah.
Live action Akira, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Make it live action.
Aren't they already? I think they were already. I thought they were already doing that though, Gary.
Yeah, they've been doing that the last 10 years, so nothing's come of it.
Talking about it for years.
Yeah.
But here's my thing with that, going into CGI back again, not to get too far deep into that. Doesn't it kind of defeat the purpose of doing an anime film in quote unquote live action if most of it's going to be animated anyway in CGI? Like
because it looks live action.
Not to me. It just looks like a Pixar movie. Like I tried watching the one with the James Cameron produced with Christoph Waltz, Alita.
Alita Battle Angel.
It was enjoyable enough, but I fell out of it after a half hour because if there wasn't humans on screen, same thing with the Ready Player One. It was like, I just feel like I'm watching an animated Pixar movie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I understand that.
And I mean, again, I don't take anything away from those who enjoy it, but I was kind of just disappointed I couldn't get into the Alita movie because I heard so many great things about it, and I really like Christoph Waltz as an actor too. So,
I think I did like Christoph Waltz as an actor. I just think we've discovered the full range of Christoph Waltz now as an actor.
Maybe he just needs to be with Tarantino. That could be it.
But I just watched Hateful Eight again tonight, and Tim Roth's actually playing Christoph Waltz in the movie.
Yes.
It's like, isn't that Christoph Waltz's character with the beard and everything else?
You're right. I actually thought it was at first.
I haven't seen Christoph do anything where he's really stretched himself to play a different kind of character. I mean, maybe those are the roles he gets offered. But I loved him in the first couple of movies where we kind of really started to see him. But I'd love to see him do something completely out of the box and be a different character, you know?
No, I agree, and I actually thought Tim Roth was him at first in the movie. I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't think Christoph was.
Well, I literally watched it and thought, oh, you couldn't get Christoph for this, so you put your old buddy Tim Roth in there, right?
Yeah, well, I think that was more of an homage to Reservoir Dogs, but yeah, he wanted to have a bit of that there, especially with him and Michael Madsen.
Yeah. And
don't get me talking about Tarantino. We'll be here all day. I literally have a wallet that says "bad motherfucker" on it. So,
exactly. Getting back to the last couple of super chats, Crispy Critter says you're describing an unbalanced movie. Logan's Run was like that. Great concept, beautiful photography, but mediocre script or direction.
I agree with that. But again, I think you look at a movie that came out in the 70s when people were more tolerant of pacing and stuff like that. So, I don't think that movie would work in its current format now, but I think a remake of Logan's Run, if you amped it up, I mean, to me, The Island is kind of like a little bit Logan's Run-esque anyway and kind of shows what they would have done, what a modern-day version of Logan's Run would
I
be.
love that movie, by the way.
The Island, to me, is the best Michael Bay movie.
It is, by far. That's such a great movie.
I mean, I do think they're a little bit immortal towards the end. They go through a hell of a lot and seem to survive. But I still think it's a very, very strong and powerful movie, and it's got some great stuff. I love the stuff, inside the facility, and I love when they escape as well. It's funny. It's got some great action sequences. ScarJo looks amazing in it. Ewan McGregor is always good to watch. So, yeah, I think it's the only problem I ever have with it is that everyone's orange in it, but that's bad.
Exactly.
Michael Bay
you have to have a few Bayisms in there.
I was say, I think you're right about Logan's Run being the pacing of it and the story structure being more of the time than anything, because I do know it's been in development hell for like years. They've been trying to make a reboot, and even Bryan Singer was attached for the longest time.
Right.
Yeah. And nothing came of it. And speaking of that, Christopher Tock says, can we have a Zardos reboot, please?
Absolutely. As long as the wardrobe's the same, I'm in.
Yeah.
Why not? I don't see why.
Indeed. Why not?
I think we're close to catching up here. We're getting there.
Yeah, getting there. Mark C said those corrupted dinosaurs need to fight cyborg dinosaurs with muscle launchers. Yeah.
Sequel. Don't spoil it for everybody. Jeez.
Yeah. And we already answered this one about from the fourth 1000 about the Akira live action movie. So I think you got your money's worth there. And with that, I
talk too.
Yeah. And with that, I do believe that we are caught up with every last super chat.
Yep. Because Mark C was the last one.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. So, Gary, where can people find you, or do you have any final thoughts on the whole Star Wars situation?
Yeah, put Favreau in charge and just kick Kathleen Kennedy to the curb, right? Let's just get her out of there, for God's sake, and let Favreau and whoever he's got working on his team come up with a plan for the next few years, and let's see where they go with it. Like I say, I mean, they seem to be tapping into the what the people want. So, and clearly she's not. I mean, it seems to be a unanimous. Again, it seems like it's obvious, right? That you had the ball and you didn't do anything with it. You kind of fucked it up. So it's like it's time for you to move along, and let somebody else who seems to be doing a good job with it. Maybe it's just it seems obvious to me. So I mean, I like I say, I don't want to see too much stuff done. I think there's a danger of just like doing too much. And again, maybe you get a situation where the suits are like, oh my God, Mandalorian's done so well. So what else do you want to do, John? And let's do this and let's do that. And clearly people love it. So we'll just stop pumping this stuff out. And when that starts happening, I think you're in danger of over polluting the waters and potentially losing quality control. So I hope that doesn't happen. That's all I would say.
Yeah, well, let's hope. And where can people find you for those that see you now for the first time?
I have an Instagram. That's about all. So Instagram, which is Hollywood Assassin, where I post pictures of all sorts of weird and stupid shit, whether it be makeup effect stuff or bits of news, or I make models in my spare time of motorcycles and dioramas. So sometimes I put those on there. But and I have a website as well, which is 2hoursinthedark.net. So that's about it.
And also be
Midnight's Edge. I come to Midnight's Edge all the time and talk, and usually I'm very animated and shouty and loud, and I've been quite subdued today. So
yeah, but we're always glad to have you, and you're
Absolutely.
always welcome. So yeah, well, you can also find Gary on previous episodes of Midnight's Edge Live in the morning. All of them you can find on our other channel, Midnight's Edge Live Archives, plus the Hellraiser documentaries, as well as the Exorcist special and the Coulrophobia announcement. So be sure to check all of those things out, especially the Hellraiser stuff, because that is amazing stuff. I actually wish that that could have been included on the UK Blu-ray. I would have given it to them for free.
Yeah,
to
that was what I was saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I said they could have it for cheap. Just all I'd have to say is produced by Midnight's Edge. We wouldn't care.
Yeah, exactly. We just want Gary's amazing behind the scenes stories and commentary track, which you can find right here on this channel, to be seen and be heard by as many as possible.
Yeah.
And Natasha, our ever trusted wrench, has the link for that in the text in the sidebar right now. So yeah, go check that out.
She's dropping the links and doing a great job. And she embraced her wrench well, and we appreciate all that she's done. She's not required to be here every show, but she has been here pretty much every live stream since. And I just want to take a moment to thank her. And also, I found my new favorite meme so far for the year, Andre. I thought you'd like to see this. Here's 2020 showing 2021 in the workplace.
That's a brilliant one. Indeed. And it fits right in with the theme of scary clowns, since we have scary heroes.
We'll actually use that photo in our announcement. That's why I thought it was so perfect to end the show with. Somebody else repurposed the same photo for very good purpose. Very good purpose here. I think this is pretty much the new year in a nutshell so far. So let's just hope it gets better. That's all I know.
Can't get worse, can it?
It can always get worse. With what you wish for. But in either event, I would like to thank Gary for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you, and you're always welcome. And of course, it's always a pleasure to have all of you in the chat join us as well. So be sure to make us part of your regular day. We are live every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 a.m. LA time. That's 6 p.m. Central European time. And of course, in between those, you also have the regular content that comes a little bit ad hoc, and we'll have a pretty cool Star Wars video for you coming later today. So be sure to tune in for that. And with that, I bid you all farewell.